It's your boy Mel. Welcome to Carb Kennel, everybody. And today we're going to be discussing how to put weight on your dog. And we're also going to be discussing a product review. We haven't did the product yet, but we're going to discuss this product. And we're also going to discuss all the things we use over here and what we're using this week. This is Bishop. As you know, Bishop is our very active dog. If you can see Bishop, he doesn't have a really dense weight. Bishop is actually, like, I wouldn't say underweight, but let's just say it's hard to put weight on him. And, you know, it's hard to put weight on him. So we're going to try some different things to put weight on Bishop, but that's not really what this is about. This is about this review on this dog food, and I'll show you how it all ties in together. Today we have Mana Pro Nutrition Life Cool Calories 100. Now, as you know, I feed my dogs, we were feeding our dogs goat milk in order to put fat on them and size on them. But the goat milk is $75 a bag. So I got to thinking to myself, let me go out here and find something that's cheaper. What can I find that's cheaper? And I really couldn't find anything that was cheaper. But what I was able to do was find something that was comparable to the price but had more bang for the buck. So I picked up this stuff called Cool Calorie 100. Let's see if he eats that. Nah, he ain't messing with that. But we'll see if we can get him to eat it though. We're gonna put it on the food. This food right here is basically 95% protein, 95% fat. And fat gives twice as many calories than carbohydrates. So I figured I'll grab this right here instead of the goat's milk in order to give the dog more calories. So what I'm trying to do is give the dog more calories and not necessarily pay as much money for it. Because basically the goat milk was about 50% fat. No, about 50% fat almost. But this is 100% fat. So what I can do with this right here is I can just use a little bit of this in their food in order to give them more calories. So the dogs that are outside and the dogs that are outside in the cold, the dogs that are performing, and also these dogs have a lot of muscle, and young dogs expel a lot of energy. If you know, I have a lot of puppies and they expel a lot of energy. So, you know, they can become thin, or, they can become thin. And when you have bullies, you don't want your bullies to become thin. You want them to be always bulked up. So I figure, let me try this. Also, it says that it gives the dogs a really clean coat, and it gives them a real shiny coat. And it's for horses that perform and can't really keep their weight up. You know, some horses run and jump and pull carts. So I figured I'll grab this. Like I said, I'm gonna get into it. Basically, it's 95% fat. Well, no, 99% fat. You know, so that should help bulk up the dog. It says basically you only need to use 2 or 3 ounces. Instead of using the goat milk and mixing it and doing all this stuff, we're just gonna use this, and we can use small amounts, maybe 2 or 3 spoons full, to give the dog a nice, a nice nourishment of fat. And it also has something called fatty acids. And I guess these fatty acids help the production of hair and, keep the dog's skin and coat. It helps production of skin and coat. So I'm going to use this, and then I'll try to get back to you guys with the results of this. Like I said, I'll tell you a long story. So first we were actually using cow's milk, powdered cow's milk. And then I was told by the person I purchased my recent puppy from to use goat's milk. Then I realized that goat's milk was 30% protein, or 20% protein, 30% fat, and the goat milk was like, the cow's milk was like 20% fat and 20% protein or something. So the goat milk was way higher, but this is higher than both of them. Now the takeaway is the vitamins. The goat milk and the cow's milk had calcium and other various vitamins, but I'll get into that in a few seconds. And they also had protein. As you know, we use high protein dog food over here, and we feed a lot of meat. So our dogs are not lacking protein. We use puppy food and we use vitamins and probiotics. So our dogs are not lacking vitamins. So I don't need to pay extra for vitamins and calcium. Also, calcium, vitamins, and protein. Also, when you have dogs that are growing fast and rapid, like the American Bully, which is a large breed of dogs, some are just largely built in a way, you don't want to overload with protein because it will cause an effect of overgrowth in a dog, especially a young dog. The dog will overgrow himself, where his body can tend to grow bigger than his muscles, and his ligaments won't form in the right manner because it's just way too much protein. Also, protein gives the dog brittle fur. So you touch the dog's fur will be real brittle. And also, a lot of you nutritionists might notice protein causes kidney trouble because that protein gets its way into the kidneys and the liver, and it causes problem with the organs. So that's why you really don't want to go too ham, or like I say, too overboard with the proteins. Everything is high protein, protein. As you see in the foods that I'm going to introduce you in a few seconds, high protein. So I'm like, I don't need to pay for protein. I don't need to pay for vitamins because I'm already paying for protein and vitamins. So all I need is this raw fat. Now, some dogs may not want to eat it, but that's okay. Because what I'll do is, basically, when you have a high dense calorie food, you can reduce the amount of food you give because the food has such high calories that you don't have to give as much, which is less cleanup. Less cleanup means a cleaner environment, healthier puppies. And then you also have a thing called bloat. So if you're overfeeding your dogs a whole bunch of stuff, especially when it comes to dog food, or too much dog food can cause bloat in a dog and kill it. So it's a lot of reasons why you would use this high protein. For us, we're using it for two reasons. Really a few reasons, but the main reason is we have some dogs that don't really have the weight they should have and are not putting on the weight that we would like them to put on. So we're going to try to increase their calories without increasing the amount of food they eat, if that makes any sense. Then we also have puppies that are burning off a lot of energy, and we just can't feed them enough or keep up with them. No matter how much we feed them, they're burning that energy off because they play a lot. But with this, I think that we're going to be able to really touch on something. I don't know how it's going to go. It's spilling out the bag, as you can see. It's on the ground. It's supposed to be 100% vegetable fat. It kind of smells like lemons a little bit, so I don't know. So next, we'll get into the next thing. That's that for that high protein. So get this, guys, and you don't have to use that milk because that milk has way too much calcium. And then when you're using the dog food, you don't want to give the dog too much calcium, bone overgrowth. You don't want to give the dog too much vitamins because you don't know what the effect will be on the internal organs. But if you just give the fat, you can kind of just give the dog the fat, which will increase his size and increase his, intake without increasing the amount of food you're using. This thing is leaking. Unfortunately, when you buy things, you never know, how they're going to come. But that's neither here nor there. Next, we're going to get into the chicken. So we feed a lot of this chicken. This chicken is a chicken back. We use this. We use this chicken back because it's just a little bit cheaper than the thighs. The chicken back contains another key ingredient for dogs called the cartilage, which I believe will break down into glucosamine. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure I'm sure. Glucosamines, which is the cartilage in here, the same stuff in your knee, the same stuff in dogs' legs. When you have large breed dogs, or it's just a sporting dog, or just any dog for that matter, you want to give the dog some glucosamines to help keep the tendons from popping and the joints from wearing thin. So we used a lot of this chicken. It also has some fats and a little bit of proteins and a lot of calcium and omega-3s. Omega-3s are good for whatever they're good for. I don't know, skin and eyes and coat or something. But it's omega-3s in here, unprocessed, unheated, untreated, and also the glucosamine. So you don't have to supplement glucosamine when you're using chicken backs. They should be high in glucosamine because this whole skeleton of the chicken is cartilage. And we feed a lot of that chicken, but one thing I will say is, and then we'll get into the next part of it is, no matter how much chicken you feed these dogs, you know, they're always still hungry. Which leads me to believe that the chicken, they burn it up quick because their stomachs are full of acid. But a dog is a different breed than a wolf or a wild animal, as people would say. Experts disagree. That's all I'm gonna say. Experts disagree on everything. So what I would say is, when I notice that no matter how much chicken I give them, they're still gonna be hungry and showing signs of hunger. But if I give them dog food, it kills the hunger. So next we'll get into our brand of dog food that we use here. We use Victor. Why do we use Victor? Because the dogs love it. When they poo, they don't poo out a lot. They just poo a little bit. You know, basically it's a thing where if you give them a bowl of food, you'll get a small handful of poo. And the poo is solid and easy to clean up. And they love it. There's no throwing up with this Victor. There's no, there's no skin irritations we have with this Victor. The only problem with Victor is it's just too expensive. It's way too expensive. It's like 2 bags will cost you about $130. So with that, and then you cannot get it at a regular store. You have to travel to get it. And then, if it gets really hectic, people will buy all the Victor up and you can't get it. So the only problems we have with Victor, price, availability, and a trip. You gotta make a trip to get it. So, with that being said, it's very high in protein, and I think it's a very good quality food. I think the only food that's probably better than this is Blue Buffalo. And I only think that because Blue Buffalo probably has better ingredients than this. This is probably just your average run-of-the-mill dog food with good ingredients, but Blue Buffalo, I think, is a step above regular dog ingredients. Like, they just take it to the next level. And Blue Buffalo will probably cost you about, for 40 pounds of Blue Buffalo, you're probably going to pay almost $100. So if you can afford that, more power to you. So the only problem I have with this dog food is Blue Buffalo. Is the price. So we use this in small quantities. We try to use it as little as possible. We don't try to give a whole bowl of this. You want to try to give half a bowl, like 1-2 scoops, which is like probably 2 cups and a little bit. So that's where it ties back into the supplements and the proteins or whatever. So next, we'll get into the price. This is just too expensive to feed all the dogs this. We will be homeless because it's just so expensive.
How much is it?
Huh?
How much is it for a bag of Victor?
I said it already. Victor's going to run you $60 a bag, about $61. So, it's $56 plus tax, plus the trip, if you get it from a Tractor Supply store. And unfortunately, I'm from up north. Philadelphia is where I was born. If you're up north, I don't know how you're going to get this without ordering it, because Tractor Supply stores don't start until you get like down south. I think the first one, it might be in Delaware. So if you're going up, there's no Tractor Supplies. And that means you can't get this. Or you got to do something crazy to get it. Or go somewhere else. And then they might want $75 for it. Who knows? So we'll get into the next part about it. Cheap, everyday, run-of-the-mill. We call this fillers. We call this the filler dog food. So what you would do with a dog food like this is retriever high protein adult performance. Some people can feed this stuff to their dogs and swear by it and have no problem. I honestly was trying to buy the retriever puppy food today, but I ended up grabbing this by accident, not paying attention. Sidetrack. And this is a 50-pound bag. And you know, it's 27% protein, and it has 1.4% fatty acids, but you know, and lilac acid is 1.5, so it's kind of high in, I would call it omegas or fatty acids. It's kind of high. I'll give it a 3% rating, which leads me to believe that basically it's a lot of chicken in this food, because that's the only thing it could be. But this dog food is, you know, it's meat and bone meal, corn and wheat, corn molding, wheat molding, soybean, animal fat. You know, I got the wrong food today, but it's high protein, and that brings me to another point. This dog food is 27%. Any representations of a number are the average number. So you can always assume that it's higher. So this is 30%. This is like 33%. I was watching QB and Kennels the other day, and he was basically saying you don't need to give large breed dogs, puppies, this much protein. And you really don't need to give it to, you really only need to give this food to dogs that are working or work or put in some work. Because what happens is all this extra protein in these foods, the dog doesn't use them, and it sits around and it ends up causing the dog skin problems, I believe, or it causes all kinds of issues because people don't work their dogs. One, and then two, it's just too much protein to even just deal with. The body has to try to do something with these proteins. And if you notice, if you go look at a regular bag of dog food, it might be kibbles and bits, it might be 18% protein. So the regular dog food started out at 18%, which leads me to believe that dogs can work out about an 18% protein diet. And that brings me to another point. The proteins in these foods are vegetable proteins. What does that mean? Well, they say that the amino acid chain links in, I believe, vegetables are shorter, and the protein link chains, amino acids in animal protein are longer. What does that mean? It basically means, in a nutshell, that animal protein will break down better for a carnivore, and basically the short amino acids really don't break down as much, supposedly. No one can prove all this stuff scientifically or technically. The truth be told, I believe that dogs can break down anything that you give them. What I really mean is, dogs can adapt and eat whatever they're fed. So if they're eating chicken heads, they'll adapt to that. In China, in Thailand, not China, but like Thailand and Cambodia, they feed the dogs rice. They actually cook them and eat the dogs, but they take a thing and they take rice and they fill the dog up with rice. They take a thing and they shove it down the dog's throat, fill it up with rice. The dog gets bigger, then they sell the dog for meat. So, I mean, they can just feed them rice. We're giving them all this other stuff. So, I mean, it leads me to believe that a dog can pretty much eat anything. And what allows a dog to do that is basically, which brings me to my next point, a probiotic. What is a probiotic? Basically, it's different types of bacteria or different types of good bacteria who break down things in the stomach that the dog can't necessarily break down, and provide what's called a good digestion. Back to what I was saying earlier, if you notice I said something about bloat. A dog can become bloated and gassy because the dog scarfs down too much of his food, the food expands too large, too much pressure and acid, it can kill the dog. So with probiotics, helps break down the materials that the dog can't break down. When these materials break down, maybe the dog could absorb them and use them as energy, maybe not. I don't know. I'm not gonna sit here and say I know, but I'm just gonna say I assume they do, because every time I take my dogs to the field, they're always eating rabbit poo and deer poo. What is that? Probiotics. Because they're eating the same, bacteria and the same good and bad bacteria that break down everything in the deer's stomach and the rabbit's stomach. They're eating that to now put in their stomach to help break down everything so they can have a good digestive. Am I right? I don't know. They just love, I don't know, but they love eating deer poo, goose poo, rabbit poo. They won't stop eating it. And I mean, you can beat them. That's why I don't even take them out to the field like that anymore, because they won't stop eating it. But I do feel that they could catch worms from it. And that's where another product that I'll introduce you guys to, the goat dewormer, the goat pellet dewormer, where you can buy this bag. Let's say you buy it every time you have puppies. Buy 2 bags every time you have puppies and feed all the dogs some of it. That'll help, kill that. But as that kills that, it will also take away the probiotics. So we also give the dogs probiotics. Do they work? I don't know. I was told to give it to them. You know what I'm saying? The theory is that it keeps the gut healthy. More than likely, I believe it does, because I can tell you that if you ever watch Animal Planet, or I don't know even know if it exists anymore, or Discovery Channel back in the days, or any nature show, you'll notice that the carnivores always eat the stomach first, then the liver. The stomach contains pre-digested grass. Why would a lion eat the pre-digested grass first if all they needed was protein? The reason why I believe is because carnivores are basically, I want to say this in a good way, but not a crazy way, but I'm going to say it in my way. Carnivores are basically a virus. Like, when you watch the vampire movies and you see a virus, or like the vampires want to drink blood because they got a virus or whatever. So what that means is a carnivore exists outside of all the other animals. It's trying to live off of other animals, but in order to do that, it must eat them. It must consume them, because it can't eat the stuff in its own environment. That's why it has to eat the stomach first, because it needs the carbohydrates from the animal, because it cannot break down carbohydrates on its own. They don't have the teeth to grind it down. So if you eat it, you grind it down, you pre-digest it, you got all the, call it foliae or bacteria in your stomach breaking it all down, and I come along and eat you, now I got it in me. Now I can get my carbs. But without you, I can't get my carbs. Same thing here with the probiotic, same thing with the poo in the field that the dog likes to eat. Am I 100% right? I don't know, but, experts disagree. So I'm not here to debate anyone. I'm just telling you what it is. Why the dog eat goose poo? Why do you buy prebiotics for your dogs? Why do we need to eat yogurt with prebiotics in it? I don't know. You tell me. Then that brings me to another thing, and that is we use a multivitamin. This multivitamin we use on pregnant dogs and puppies that we're keeping. We use this to ensure that they have the best possibility of having all the nutrients that they need to grow, all the nutrients that they need to get bigger, and for correct development. So we use this just as a backup, even though all this food comes with vitamins in it. And, the chicken has its own vitamins. So that's why I also would say, I didn't need to buy the goat milk. That's kind of bringing me back to the original thing about this, the milk, the Mana Pro. I can tell right now that this Mana Pro, he spilled all on the floor. It's white, it kind of has a strong smell. I don't know. They may not want to eat it too much, but they're not going to have much of a choice. I'm going to put it in their food, mix a little water in it. And what that does when I do that is they're going to absorb that fat straight into their body quick. And then as the food sits and the food expands, it'll have time, they'll have the initial nourishment. And as the food breaks down throughout the day, I don't have to worry about them being hungry. And I don't have to worry about overfeeding them. But what I want to say about this filler is, what you want to do with the filler, this retriever high protein, or I was going to get a puppy food, which puppy food has more nutrients. And I also have puppies. What I do with this is, the best thing for this stuff needs to sit in water for a little bit before you give it to them. But the best thing for this is it's a filler. So if I give you 2 cups of Victor, or let's say a cup and a half, if I can measure it out right. if I give you a cup and a half of this and a cup of this, or if I can give you 2 cups of this and 1 cup of this, or half a cup of this, that's 3 cups on the day, you know. And let's get into the actual logistics of it. I like to see how many calories it gives. So this is 400 calories a cup, and that's pretty high. And this is, I think this is 414 or something. I don't see it. Hold on, give me a second. I'm not finding it. I don't know why. Okay, this is 406 calories. Then that brings me back into the second portion of tying everything in again. This is 400 calories. This is 4. Now, 1 is a lot of corn and byproducts. 1 is a lot of meat, supposedly. Technically, the meat one will break down and be absorbed betterly by the dog. This one right here will take time to break down, and without a probiotic, you know, it will be nearly impossible for the dog to break it down. But if you can get the probiotic and just give a small amount of this, and it has a lot of space in order to break down, and a lot of space, surface space for the nutrients to kind of be drawn out, it'll work perfectly. You just don't give too much of this, you know, and it'll break down slowly all day as it sits in your dog's stomach. And, you know, give as little of this as you can. But you're trying to get the levels to where the poo is firm. And once you can get that level where they don't even know that you're giving them this, then you're good. That way you don't have to give a whole bunch of this or a whole bunch of anything else. And you can save some money. So this is a 50-pound bag. This is 40. This is 60. This is 30. This is half the price of this and 10 pounds heavier. So hopefully I learned something from this. And write your comments below.